everyone, I'm having a second try at doing a live with Prasanna Diana, and we're doing a courageous conversation this morning, and I'm just going to see if I can bring her on live here on Facebook. So Courageous Conversations is really a celebration of the women in the Tree Sisters Network, and we're celebrating their wisdom and courage and their voices, essentially. And if you've watched any of the other Courageous Conversations, we've been diving into the topic of feminine nature-based leadership and what that looks like to different women, and it's been pretty fascinating. So we're hoping to really explore that today with Prasanna, and I'm hoping she will find this live feed soon. If you have seen any of our other Courageous Conversations, you'll know that we have occasionally had technical difficulties, which has sometimes involved singing while we're waiting for our guest. So you probably also know that Tree Sisters is campaigning at the moment, and we're calling all women to come and join us and to restore the earth through love and care and reverence. And we have a really beautiful campaign video that hopefully you've seen, and we're calling for 10,000 more women to join us at Tree Sisters. And so far we've had over 4,500 women come and join in, which is really wonderful. And our campaign's running till the 17th of May. And we have some really beautiful offerings as part of that. Now I can see Prasanna is there. I'm going to add you, Prasanna, unless you've already made a request. Let me just do that. Prasanna, if it's possible, can you make a request to join? There's a button at the bottom that you can make that request, and then I can add you. Because right now it's not letting me do that. So if you missed it this morning while I'm waiting for Prasanna, we had a really amazing, Claire talked to Dr. Vandana Shiva, which was something really special, and I hope that you caught that. The replay will be available soon, and that was part of our Calling All Women campaign. So I'm not sure if you're still there, Prasanna. If you can make a request to join, that would be really great. Sorry everybody for the delay. We tried using a different piece of software this morning and that was not working. We lost Prasanna during that. So thank you for being patient if you're watching and waiting. I'm really excited to speak to Prasanna, and here we have this issue again of not being able to bring the guest on. Live interviews are a courageous and daring thing to do, let me tell you, because the tech is so tricky. Hi Merrily, I can see that you're there. Yes, so Merrily, you asking who it is. Prasanna is a creator of the Elemental Woman Leadership Program, and a wonderful woman who I met at the Seven Sisters Festival in Melbourne in Australia earlier this year, whose values and ethic are very aligned to Tree Sisters. I'm just going to improve on now. So it says we're adding, and I'm really excited to speak to Prasanna because she has some beautiful insights about nature and feminine nature-based leadership, and a really fascinating story also. So she's adding. If we all just really hold a vision for her to appear, hopefully she will appear very soon. Still adding. So if you're watching and you've been listening to our Calling All Women... Oh, there you are.
Hello. There's a huge delay between me asking to be joining and it actually coming through. Sorry about that.
Ah, well, we have you now. Yay.
Yes.
So let's get stuck in before we have any more
I know.
dramas. Yeah.
I know. So do you want me to start by, I guess we kind of fell off before, why I am a tree sister?
Yes, I would love you to
Yes.
start.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, first of all, I spent many years living completely surrounded by trees, which for me is absolutely luxury because I grew up in Germany in apartments, very disconnected from nature. And I was yearning to be with nature my entire growing up time, and had this huge vision of one day living in a country where there was lots of raw nature. And I would speak to my family members and my friends about it. One day I'll leave Germany and I will migrate.
Uh-oh.
And they would look at me with shock and horror and go, how can you say that? And so when I was 21, I literally packed my backpack and I headed for Australia. And I traveled around all sorts of places, but then ended up living in the Adelaide Hills for 21 years. And especially 10 years out of those 21 years, there was just trees everywhere. And I hung out more with trees than with people at that point. So my alliance with Tree Sisters is that I feel that as a woman, we actually are like a tree. We only have forgotten. So we are actually meant to have our feet deeply in the earth energetically and are connected to the sky or to consciousness. And I also feel that just like the cherry tree travels through the seasons of life, so do we. And we, in fact, need to really align our life, our work, our business to the cycles of nature within us and without, because we are nature. We just have forgotten.
Yeah, that's so true. So I'd really love it if you would share a little of your story and how you came to be living in nature and making that really strong connection with it.
Yeah, so in the mid-90s, I was running a complementary health centre. It was one of the first complementary health centres in South Australia, where we had a number of alternative practitioners as well as a GP working. I was working there as a yoga therapist. At the very similar time, I also lost my second child. So I gave birth to my second son, who died 2 days after birth. And that really, first of all, activated me to work with women to help them trust in their bodies to birth babies naturally. That's kind of how I wanted to lose the energy of loss, because when you're preparing to nurture a child and then this child comes and dies 2 days later, there's all that mothering, that nurturing that was going to go there and then couldn't. And so I had this huge call to work specifically with women to prepare them for natural birth, and then also recover from birth and do the antenatal classes and postnatal classes with yoga. But then came a point where I really felt I needed to withdraw from the world again for my strength and regaining its own cycles again. And it was like a fast spiral downhill with my health. So I withdrew to living on 10 acres of bush, and people barely saw me for 10 years. I was literally just a hermit. And I was observing nature really closely. I was meditating many hours a day, and I was literally healing myself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, on every level. And so what happened when I left the 10 years of living like that, this beautiful, simple, quiet life, and I emerged back into the world had changed so much. All of a sudden there was internet and business had changed completely. And I wasn't involved in the change. I was like stopping still. And then all of a sudden I had to deal with this massive life change. And I ended up living in Melbourne, a large city, which was a, just such a massive change. I can't even tell you how big. But I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this experience? What am I going to do with this deep wisdom that filled me so deeply from spending this 10 years with nature, where I opened up to a very old wisdom within? And so I had this thought that I wanted to bring this to the business world.
We've lost you a little.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you froze. You just froze momentarily.
Yeah.
I would love to just pick up on what you were saying before about when you were spending the 10 years in nature. That's a long time. It's a long time to spend 10 years, you know, out in the bush, just being with nature. And I would love to hear if you could expand a little on how you spent your time and what that deepening into relationship was and felt like.
Yeah. So basically, it was a time, it felt like a dream life, really. That's what it felt like. Looking back, it was like living in a dream for 10 years. So, you know, we basically had designed and built this house surrounded by this beautiful nature. And I was homeschooling two of my children who were born on that block actually during this time. And also I was an artist, so I was creating beautiful ceramics and paintings, which always had a message, a deep message about everything. And you know, there's just so much I was doing, and you know, I was meditating and observing nature. So it was this very still place of being from which I explored, observed, and created. Yeah.
And is that some, like, I'm trying to imagine being, you know, like I can't even imagine being in a space like that for 10 years, because that's you know, that really is an extended period of time. And were there changes in your body from being in that deep connection with nature all that time? Did you catch the last bit of what I said?
I missed some of it.
Okay. I was just asking if you felt changes in your body from being in that extended time in nature.
Yes, yes. And it's probably more profoundly that I feel it now when I'm back in the city. What happens is the minute I step back into nature, that my nervous system relaxes. It's like I notice how much under strain human beings are today by not being surrounded enough by nature. So the minute I step into a forest, it's like there's something very profound happens to my body and my energetics. It's like there's an opening up that happens. There's a deep relaxation. It's like almost all the cells are being flooded with this life force that is in trees and in nature, especially in forests. The vitality is so strong, and it seems to be activating kind of a place within us that regenerates us. It feels like when I put my feet on the earth supports us. The earth actually feeds us with her life force if we're open and receptive, right? A lot of the time we've shut off energetically from this power. And so it is kind of a relearning how to be again, because naturally we are created to be receiving this life force from the earth, from our environment. Most of the time, though, we are surrounded by unwholesome environment, too many computers, too many electrical equipments, not enough sunlight, not enough outside, roofs over our heads, stagnant air, you know, traffic fumes. The list goes on and on and on. And we've kind of nearly accepted this to be as normal, right? We've accepted, oh, well, this is life, right? But it's actually not normal. So our bodies have changed very little over hundreds or thousands of years, really, and yet we need to cope with all these things these days, which impact the way we feel, the way we think, the way we operate, the way we make decisions. It impacts everything, just everything. And so in a sense, if we were to create an inner alignment and a connection to nature again, we would have different thoughts. We would make different decisions. We would have a deeper connection to our children, our partners, our friends. We would make, take very different steps in our work. It would just profoundly affect us.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things I'm thinking about while you're talking. So I'm thinking about partly that many of those things you're talking about create a very busy mind, and they
Yeah.
put us in that, they put us into a kind of fight, flight, a constant response mode that is
Yes.
depriving us of that deeper wisdom that's there. But what I'm also sort of wondering about is, even if you do remove all of those things, it's still not necessarily the easiest thing, or for me anyway, to drop into that deep connected space with nature. And I'm interested what you see is, a really good ways, if we take away all that noise, how do we
Yeah.
then make that connection?
Yes. So for women, because we have lived in such a masculine world for so long, we've adapted kind of a very masculine way of being. And so we tend to be high up in our bodies energetically. We tend to be very much in our heads. We tend to be kind of, the shoulders are holding so much tension from carrying the world, trying to juggle children and work and money and business and house and shopping and cooking and gardening. And, the list is endless. And so in a sense, what we need to do is we need to start bringing our energy down. First of all, down in our body, back into our pelvis. That's really where our creative force lies. Our power lies within the womb, because we create from that. It's like I always say to women, we have the power, the potential to create life. It doesn't get any better than that. This is like so freaking amazing. We can't even get our head around it, right? And so in a sense, we need to go back home again. So if we can be present lower in our body, be present in our pelvis, where that deep wisdom lies, it is like in equivalent to the earth, like it's the depth of the earth. I like connecting with the womb of the earth, in the center of the earth. And so draw from that life force and that wisdom. And then I like to open up my feet, my toes, my legs to really receiving this into my own space, my own womb, so that my wisdom is always informed by our mother's wisdom, because the earth is our mother. She's the mother of all mothers, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, this is kind of, I think, what we need to do. And in a sense, the generational healing occurs through that, because we've all been raised by mothers who were wounded, right? Wounded in the feminine. And we need to turn that around. So my healing came from connecting with a mother, right? And that brought profound healing, first of all, physically, because there's so much power in the earth. So once I learned to receive that and rebuild, my cells began to regenerate, literally. And it didn't happen until then. And I tried everything. I spent thousands of dollars on acupuncture and herbs and Ayurveda and meditation. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But the true healing didn't happen until I learned to really connect with the mother and really receive her and let her do the job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so fascinating, because even when you were speaking about, the head and the shoulders, I'm feeling all that tension. And then when you just listening to you say dropping into the pelvis, suddenly, my awareness goes there, and I can feel this spreading of my energy, like it's not so tightly held then. And
Yeah.
I had a beautiful quote prepared from Marianne Williamson to read to you, but because of the technology and reasons I won't go into, I can't actually read it to you now. But I know that what she was saying was that if we want to have any real power in this world, we have to slow down. And that when
Yes.
we slow down, there is this deepening and widening that takes place, and that's what gives us access to that power. And I'm
Yes.
interested in what your thoughts are about how on earth we juggle that, and this sort of taps into feminine nature-based leadership, is
Yes.
how do we juggle that business of, if we want to be out in the world making a difference, we have to use technology. We have to, do this weird thing that we're doing now where we're trying to be in the same space using technology that's really unreliable. How do we juggle that and the demands of, life as it currently stands, and also have a foot in that space of slowing down and depth and awareness? Like, this is always my struggle, is how do I balance those things?
Yes, yes. And that is a really, really big question. So, and that's precisely why I'm so passionate about bringing this to those really big game changers, the women who want to make a big impact in the world, because they're most in danger of burning out. And so, in a sense, first of all, there's this. We need to have a daily practice where we're constantly observing ourselves. Am I connected? Am I connected with my body? Am I connected with my pelvis and with this power center? Am I connected to the earth? Am I receptive? They're kind of the three questions I ask myself and check on myself. I've trained myself to check myself throughout the day. That as soon as I feel I'm kind of becoming disembodied or my nervous system's under strain, I just stop and pause. So creating pauses in the day. And even if it's just 3 minutes, like a pause for me sometimes, because I can work long hours sometimes, right? I have pauses, like my office is upstairs, so I'll make myself walk downstairs to get a glass of water. And in that journey of walking downstairs to the kitchen to get a glass of water, I just make sure my roots are down. I bring my energy down again if it's come up. I make sure I'm open, I'm slowing down, and then take my water back up again, ready for the next thing. So it's like really becoming aware. And of course, it helps to know what it feels like to really be embodied in your body. A lot of people don't know. So that's, personally, I like to spend, several days with women to really, for them to discover what that actually feels like. Because once they know what that feels like and they're starting to be activated, basically like being like a tree again, right? They can take that home and they can then make sure if they're just coming a little bit off, they can bring themselves back again. Yeah. So it's a practice. It's a decision you have to make. The other thing that I'll look at is, I'm really passionate about working with the moon cycle. So, and to such an extent that I've created basically an online calendar app for women to go, okay, dark moon is here, so maybe I'll see less clients on those days, and I'll make time for resting, replenishing, and do some dreaming around where this month authentically wants to take me, versus what my head thinks, all the things I have to fit in, right? Or this never-ending to-do list. Because there's a part of us, and I call it our life force, which also is our soul force. Our life force, our soul force knows authentically what we're meant to be doing. And so once that takes the lead, it's like, head, shut up, you've got no idea. It's like, the head screws you around constantly. Something else takes over. And it is just that life force that in winter gets the cherry tree to sleep and rest and dream deeply and repair itself, and activates that cherry tree in spring to wake up again and grow the leaves and then the blossoms and later the cherries. It's that the cherry tree doesn't think, oh, I've got to remember to grow these cherries. It doesn't do that. It just does it. And I feel we have the same thing going on once we know how to do it. There's a part within us that just knows. And it will activate us into action without us even having to think about. And that's when our nervous system finally can sort of relax a little bit, because our head starts to slow down and trust a deeper wisdom and this instinctive wisdom that is within each woman.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's also making me think of, the way the world is. It expects the cherry tree to be blossoming and making cherries all the time,
Yeah.
all year round. We should be making cherries. And
exactly.
If a tree was to do that, it would die.
It would never have any fruit.
No.
Exactly. It wouldn't work.
So
Exactly, this is exactly my point. That's exactly right. We have to flow with the cycles. These are the basic laws of nature. And so what I find human beings struggle most with is with dropping the leaves. We hold on to stuff in our life that we've outgrown from, that doesn't serve us any longer. We cling onto it for dear life. Now, if we
yeah,
were to trust this process of life, which is forever dying, forever being reborn, forever regenerating, right? It's the cycle of life. We can't escape it. While we're on this plane, we cannot escape it. Our body's undergoing all the time. The day is born in the morning and it dies at night, right? Is the moon, is dark during dark moon and it's full during full moon. And we can't escape it. The planet, all the planets cycle, everything cycles. And once we trust this life force and instinctual being so much within us, it's like I don't even have to go on my calendar app to know that we're heading towards dark moon. It's just I'm noticing, I'm feeling more introverted, I'm beginning to slow down, I'm feeling a little bit more vulnerable, I feel less extroverted. I want to do different things, and in a more sort of introverted, I want to do more things that are quiet. And so it's just trusting our body knows. It's learning to listen to it.
so I'm really curious then, given the state of the planet and the situation that we're facing as human beings with regard to the changing climate, the massive ecosystem collapse that is around us, the change, the change in our weather patterns, the just everything that is happening that is very overwhelming for a lot of people, and raises profound grief in a lot of women in our network, including me. How do you see that we can utilize, our connection to Earth, or is there a part that has to play with what's happening in the world right now?
I'm not quite sure if I understood your question, but if I feel into myself, I feel that for a woman to truly heal herself and truly be connected with her feet to the mother, it will activate us to decisions that will impact the world positively. And it will keep us less in the worry head. The head focuses on everything that goes wrong. I mean, yes, we need to look at what needs to be fixed, but my focus is more on how can I contribute? What way am I to share my gifts to positively impact the world? And when I'm in that space, I'm not worried. When I'm in that space, I feel deep gratitude for what I can offer, for what I can gift the world with, versus being worried about what's not happening. I focus on where we're going. And here I want to see one other thing. A lot of the time when I do meet people who are really profoundly worried, I say this: there's profound change happening in the world at the moment. It looks very ugly. But when you renovate a house, you can't go from old to new without a mess. There's going to be mess first before the new emerges. So we are creating, in a sense, a new world. And it's very messy right now because we're dismantling the old. It's like the leaves are falling off the tree and there is lots of stuff lying around on the trunk. And so it's, in a sense, it needs to find a new order. And so it can be really frightening if we're just looking at what collapses, what doesn't work, all the different stuff that goes on. But, I like to focus on where we're going and how we can contribute to that instead.
Yeah, you're making me think of. There's a beautiful podcast called For the Wild, and I listened to an episode yesterday where Ayana Young was talking to a scientist, lichen scientist, and he was saying that we need not worry because our own, we can't. What he compared it to was the Romans, that if you lived in Roman times and you were just an ordinary person and you were running a bar and the Romans were demanding this tax from you, and people were fighting in the Colosseum, it's very difficult to imagine that there's a new world coming. You
Yes,
cannot imagine outside of that fishbowl. But down the line the Roman Empire was gone and something new came
exactly.
into place. And
Exactly. Yes.
we can only do what is ours to do. And I guess, what I'm hearing you saying is that we can actually only really do what is ours to do if we're deeply connected to
Exactly.
what nourishes us. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And to our calling. So I'm really clear on the way we align ourselves to our calling is to really allow our life force within us, our soul force within us, to be the most alive it can be, right? A lot of the time, our life force is so contracted through the stresses and the endless list, things on our to-do list, and the environmental pressures, and just the many things we juggle, especially as women, that our life force contracts. So we need to have time each day in nature. For me, it's like therapy. I have to go for a walk each day. If I don't go for a walk each day, I just don't feel the same. It's like that's the time when I connect deeply within my own self, with the environment, with the earth, with the spiritual support. I connect with everything there is. And then I bring that back into my work. And I don't think we can do it without that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. So I guess that leads me into a sort of final question, which is if you could say what feminine nature-based leadership means to you, and I guess with the sort of idea that feminine nature-based leadership isn't necessarily just about women, because of course, the feminine principle exists in all human beings.
Yes.
So what would that look like to you, feminine nature-based leadership?
To me, it is working and dancing with nature instead of against the flow. So it is, I think that says everything, but that actually means to do that in every area of your life and in your business and in your work that you're doing. So, and it starts again with listening to yourself. It's like if you're activated to take action, take that action. Don't get stopped by fear or whatever. Take that powerful action, make that powerful decision for change or for whatever you're activated to do. But when you're asked to slow down and listen deeply within, listen deeply within. The best decisions are made when you listen deeply. And, we all do different things in our life. And people who, dealing with bigger organizations, they have super big, irresponsible decisions to make. They can be really scary at times. But it is really important that we listen deeply within, deeply. All the knowing is inside of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're reminding me, even for myself, I know when I'm going against my own flow, like I can always hear the little whisper to like slow down, stop, listen. And if I keep moving past that, everything starts to get really difficult.
Yes,
you know
yes, yes,
nothing works properly, and
yes,
I feel more and more scattered and scrunched up in my shoulders and head.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, we're out of
Yeah.
sync, because then we're out of sync. When we're listening deeply within and we're really allowing our life force, our soul force to lead us, we're in sync with all there is. We're
Yeah.
actually, it's quite profound. We are in sync with all there is. We're outside our little me, my little I, and we're connected to everything there is. You make very different decisions in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. Very different decisions. Oh, goodness. Well, I could ask you 10,000 more questions, but I'm just aware of the time. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your nature connection. It's been really enlightening and wonderful. I will put the link to your website for anyone who's interested in the post when we come offline. If there was a last message that you would like to share with the network as part of this courageous conversation, what would that be?
Okay, what would that be? We've mentioned the worry that's kind of covering the earth, which is like a gray veil all over it. Now, what I want to say is this. Our life force, our soul force, which is the love force, it's the universal love force, permeates everything, everything, all of creation. And we are held by that. We are never alone. We are held by that. Never to forget that that life and love force is truly inside of us, and truly inside everyone and everything.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Prasanna. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing your work spreading more in the world. And for anybody who's watching, we would really love you to join us and go and check out the other amazing interviews we have on callingallwomen.me. And we will see you for another courageous conversation really soon. Thank you so much, Prasanna, and I will talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon. Bye
Lots of love.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.